joining us. It is with great honor that I introduce our next speaker. Our speaker is an international business executive and has geared his professional career around developing business opportunities for wireless communication products to Asia Pacific and Greater China markets. In July 2004, our speaker was recruited to Tempe by Freescale Semiconductor and is currently a worldwide marketing manager for wireless gaming audio markets. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Karl Weaver.
Hola, my name is Karl Weaver, a Greater China Wireless Market Mobile Device Specialist. 各位中国贵宾，大家好，欢迎参加我们的演讲会。今天的演讲会题目叫做带你进入数字化移动的东方龙。Today's presentation will be the global smartphone revolution, China selling to the mobile digital dragon. Next. I like to come down and get closer to the crowd, so we're all at eye level here. Basically, our presentation this afternoon will be the global smartphone revolution. We'll talk about the concept of converged devices. We'll talk about the smartphone impact on the global mobile society. We'll talk about future mobile device trends. We'll talk about, on part two, the subtle art of doing business with the Chinese and selling to China. I term China the mobile digital dragon. Part three, we'll talk about adopting strategies and tactics, and we'll get a Q&A so that people can ask questions. Next. So the global smartphone revolution. Basically, the mobile device is already changing the basic way that people in the United States and in China do business and communicate. So the starting point of mobility is very, very different across cultures and across countries. So basically, when you look at smartphones and converged devices, they're going to be demanded by the global mobile society and actually the information workers, which is what you all will be. And they'll be looking for tasks, duties, and wireless voice and data communications. What does it mean? It all means the mobile internet. Next. So basically, what is a wireless converged device? You might be asking yourself. Is it a cell phone? Is it a PDA, personal digital assistant? Is it a data messaging device? Well, basically, a smartphone combines all three together. Converged device is a smartphone device as well. So, but you may be asking, when is convergence successful? Do you want to carry all these devices on your body? On your belt? So, when the functions are more valuable combined than separated, that's when you want a converged device. When it's a space savings issue, when you can put it in your little pocket or in your pocket, coat pocket, that's when you want a smartphone. When there's no compromise, when you can do all the functions, thank you. When you can do all the functions without any compromise in size, cost, and usability, that's when you want a smartphone. And when it actually makes things simpler and not more complex to do. Nobody's going to buy and use a device that they can't use and can't understand fully. And in my opinion, the smartphone operates with one hand. So that you can use the other hand to drive a Mercedes. Next. So, converged devices. So they're nothing new, and we've been using converged devices for a long time. Just look at the Swiss Army knife. So, but there were many design failures 5 years ago. A lot of design failures. And so basically, the technology innovators, they weren't there 5 years ago. They are there now with advances in technology. And if it makes for a complex user experience, forget it. You're not going to use it. You want to just put down and say, I need something that's simple and lets me access PIM, which stands for Personal Information Management. And when there's no clear conceivable need for it. Well, if you don't need all these functions, you're not going to buy the device. Now, so mobile device convergence. So what is mobile device convergence? Well, it's again taking the cell phone, which is what? Typically color screen, but often still black and white screen, with basically the ability to have voice and sometimes text messaging. Very, very simple, dumb phones we call them essentially. Not very intelligent, but they are getting more intelligent without being smartphone. And then, of course, there's a smartphone. What is a smartphone? A smartphone combines a VGA-type high-resolution VGA screen. It combines a unique operating system, either Symbian, Microsoft OS, or Microsoft PDA, or Palm, or Linux operating systems. And it has the ability to do multifunctional tasks. That's what a smartphone is, and that's what a smartphone does. I'll talk a little bit further about exactly which models are good. And of course, the PDA. What is a PDA? A PDA is a personal digital assistant. It doesn't handle voice very well. Next. So there is a need for a smartphone, and the value is basically, think about this, you can listen to personalized ringtones, your funky ringtone, basically with a smartphone. You can do it with a dumb phone. So the dumb phones are actually going up in intelligence, whereas the smartphones, it's a standard to do ringtones and ringback tones. Anybody ever hear of a ringback tone? That's where you're basically waiting for the call to connect. You don't hear the blah, 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 you actually hear the music. And wireless music downloads, MP3 is being built into all of these mobile devices. Expect in the future your mobile device will have MP3 storage, flash memory storage. Basically streaming video, news and sports. Can you imagine? I'm from Massachusetts originally. Can you imagine in the future I'll be able to, hopefully if they win again the next 100 years, the Boston Red Sox winning the World Series, I'll be able to see that on my smartphone device. Because smartphones are very important for 3G technology because of video. I'll be able to do that with a smartphone. It has the functionality to do that. Interactive applications, basically on the fly, wireless. So basically my handset, I have my handset and I say, you know what, I don't like this application. You can have it downloaded, not just a ringtone. Ringtone is the first thing to get downloaded onto a mobile device. There'll be actual applications for consumer and enterprise usage that will actually get downloaded onto your mobile device. And basically, so the key drivers for the convergence are, of course, size, we talked about that. Data integration. Does anybody know what PM is? Personal Information Management? Well, that's accessing your emails. That's accessing your voicemail. Those are very basic functions that any phone that's for business applications absolutely must have. Power management is very, very critical. Nobody wants to have 10 batteries in your pocket and recharging batteries all the time. And so your device has to have pretty good power management capability to last at least 8 to 12 hours. It's a full day's work. And basically, enhanced usability basics. You know, on is on, off is off. It should be standard across all these mobile devices. Next. Okay, so now we'll talk about a little bit about the convergent lifestyle influence of convergent devices. So we've got work and we've got play. Then we have basically our life. Basically, it's meshing together right now. I have a question. Who has a cell phone? Raise your hand. Oh my goodness. A lot of people. They're getting cheap, by the way. So people at work, they do telecommuting with their own device. They're traveling and they have to sometimes pay a bill. Usually at lunch, right? And they have SOHO, small office, home office. My goodness, I've had one since '98. People do a lot of personal things at work as well. They pay bills, but there's a social impact of our convergent lifestyle. What is the social impact, you may be asking yourselves? What's the social impact? Just ask your significant other when they're trying to reach you, and you're talking on the phone. What is the social impact? You men, your wives may be trying to hide your cell phone from you. So the next generation of mobile society workers, they're going to be the early adopters of this new lifestyle. That means you guys. Next. So convergent devices, well, who do they attract? And who are the carriers of this country going after? They are going after you, 11 to 24. Well, maybe you could be 25 to 30. But basically, they're going after the youth market. And that's not just in the United States, that's all over the world, because they go for convergent devices. After you reach a certain age, there's a digital divide, basically, with a lot of these devices that I've observed. You think about that. Is your dad going to buy one of those funky devices? Probably not, right? He's looking for the traditional cell phone that flips out. There's a digital divide with mobile users and information workers. Next. Enterprise mobility. Now, basically, smartphones were designed for the enterprise. That's what the intended application is for the Microsoft smartphone, but guess what? The consumer market is really what's booming right now. Eventually it will be the enterprise market. But there are mobile applications that are critical for, basically for enterprise usage. PIM, I said that before, personal information management. Does anybody know what does SMS mean? Does anybody know? What does SMS mean? Anybody can answer.
Short messaging service.
There you go. So what about MMS? Multimedia messaging service. And what does that mean? That means taking voice, taking the JPEG file, or maybe an MPEG-4 video file of a few seconds, sending the whole thing wirelessly to a PC or to another user. And these are basically what you will be using for your career in your future in the enterprise space. Next. But now these are some of the newer phones that are out there, smartphones that are out there in the market. Some of them you might have seen, some of them are new. I've listed 2 world phones, they're not quite smartphones because they don't have the unique OS on it. But Motorola 840, which is not out yet, will be hopefully by January Verizon. And then the Samsung SCH. These are global phones. And what I mean by global phones is they'll operate the CDMA network in America. And when you roam to Europe, they also have a SIM card at the back, and you'll be able to run on the GSM network. That's been the biggest problem, roaming in between countries, right? Basically, this solves about 98% of the problems worldwide. The 2 exceptions are Korea and Japan, basically. Next. So their web-enabled messaging, it's going to grow. As I mentioned before, multimedia messaging is going to continue to grow because, you know what? I'm at the store, the wife wants me to buy some groceries. And you know what? I don't know what she wants. I'm going to go with my cell phone, take a picture, and I'm going to send it back to my wife, maybe at the computer at home. Now I'm going to be able to explain to her exactly what it is I see at the store. That's basically my application. But there are many typical content, ringtones, icons, jokes, photos, SMS email, online gaming. Oh yes, online gaming is going to be very big. It's big in places like Asia. Dating services. Can you imagine that? Well, at least you get to see the picture of who it is you're going to have a date with. And unfortunately, even pornography. Next, that's commerce, I guess. Camera phones. Camera phones are going to drive the market. And the reason why it's going to drive the market on the consumer side is because you can take a camera element and you can put it in anything, not just a cell phone. So you don't have to just put it in a cell phone. And there's a security issue now. When you go into health clubs, they tell you, oh, you can't have a camera phone. When I was in Samsung in the year 2002 in Gumi, South Korea, I mean, they almost did a strip search. They wanted to see my camera phone. I said, I don't have one. Basically, that's the situation with camera phones. As you can see, they're going to be integrated, and there's going to be a lot of high picture setting. Next. Now, Bluetooth. This is what meets reality. Bluetooth was supposed to go into everything just a few years ago. What's the problem with Bluetooth? Sounds interesting, right? Bluetooth. Lanyard, we call it in Chinese. But the problem with Bluetooth is power consumption. It consumes too much power. And that is going to be something that they have to work out. Also, the cost is rather high. Right now, you can buy a funky Jaguar BT200 or 250. Gives you anywhere between 4 and 8 hours of space. It's a wireless earpiece you put on your ear, and if your mobile device is Bluetooth enabled, there you go. But the problem is many of the carriers in America, especially the CDMA carriers, have kind of they've been very reluctant to accept Bluetooth technology. There are a number of reasons for that. The Europeans are accepting it, and it's going over very well in Europe, a little bit less so in Asia, but still, America's really slow to adopt this technology. Next. So now we talk about China, what I term the mobile digital dragon. Basically, China is the world's largest mobile subscriber market. There are between 320 and 370 million subscribers. In the United States, we have about 210 million subscribers, 220 million subscribers. So you see, it's taking off in China. And there's another country where the cell phone growth is phenomenal right now, and that's India. In fact, you're looking at India and China as being the 2 top growth economies for the next decade in the world. Next. So we'll talk about a little bit about the wireless trends that I see happening in China. The subscriber market is just going through the roof. And I'll show you a chart on that. Explosive use of wireless mobile internet, it's just going crazy. So the ISPs in China have a very cozy, friendly relationship with the carriers. And basically they cooperate and everybody makes money. That's the way it should be. There's also going to be increased competition. Now, 3G in China has not been released, although it's getting real close to being released. We have 3G in this country. We have CDMA technology, and we have GPRS technology, which is not quite on not quite on GPRS technology have reached 3G. WCDMA, that will be the evolution. I'll talk a little bit further about that later. But SMS messaging and camera and camcorder phones. Next. Now, look at that. Look at that. It's going right through the roof. So basically, China is just completely shooting through the roof with about, estimated about 270 million subscribers. So mobile phone users now in China and India outnumber fixed line phones. Next. As I mentioned before, SINAs, so these are basically low cost. They're sending SMS messages, and they can broadcast that to a lot of people, sending SMS messages in China, and eventually MMS messages. It's very, very low cost. Next. So there's a successful market adoption of SMS, as you can see here. From 2004, it's just going to continue to skyrocket with billions. And basically, the Chinese New Year is about 5 days every January, late January to late February. And this past Chinese New Year, there were 1 billion SMS messages sent every day. Every single day, approximately 7 billion SMS messages were sent in a 7-day time frame. Next. Now, let me talk a little bit about the Greater China Integration Strategy. This is where Taiwan and China essentially cooperate to produce right now, 50% and more than 50% of every cell phone is either designed in Taiwan, somehow assembled in China, manufactured in Taiwan, manufactured in China. There are many types of OEM and ODM relationships with these handset manufacturers you never heard of. You ever hear of Ningbo Bird? That's the largest cell phone manufacturer in China. Chinese cell phone manufacturer. So basically, look at this integration strategy as fueling the cell phone technology. Taiwan is the source for R&D for mobile devices. Taiwan was the source for R&D and is the source for R&D for access points, notebook computers, just about everything. Taiwanese have about 50 to 60,000 factories in China. They are the investors. Next. So China's mobile handset diversity, we talked a little bit about the smartphone production forecast. You can see that it continually goes up. But do you know that when they have new cell phones in the market, they don't test them in America first, they test them in China. Because the demand and the requirement is quite intense. They do a lot of things with their mobile devices. We just, typically with our cell phones, we pick a call. But in China, they've been sending SMS messages since 1997. So, next. Now, this is basically what I envision as the future of the cell phone manufacturing everywhere in the world. Essentially, there's no country that manufactures cell phones that can compete with the manufacturing and the production and the labor costs in China. Nobody. So basically, the Yangtze River, which is between, as you can see, Hangzhou, which is where UT Starcom. Anybody ever hear of UT Starcom? That's where they have their Asia headquarters. And Shanghai. Anybody here been to Shanghai? Raise your hand. Oh, Shanghai. Okay. So basically, it's the finest area for handset production in the world today. You can see Nokia, Motorola, UT Starcom, Toshiba, Foxconn. Their company name is called Qualcomm. Nobody's ever heard of them. They are one of the top 3 manufacturers in the world of electronics products. They're making everything for everybody. And some of the local companies and Taiwanese companies, Compal, Eastcom, Ningbo Bird, all these companies. That's the largest cell phone manufacturer. Next. So now, Chinese handset makers, basically, Dopon, we call them Chinese Dopon. That is essentially HTC, which is a company in Taiwan that manufactures cell phones. And they manufacture the smartphones for the carriers. And they ship to the carriers using Microsoft's operating system. And in China, they've created a company called Dopon, and they're entering the Chinese market. That's rather expensive for a cell phone, but guess what? People in China need smartphones, and they're buying it. They're using them for many types of applications. Chinese consumers want a flip phone. I like a flip phone. Everybody's different, but Nokia has gone down this year because they did not have an acceptable flip phone for the world markets, especially for the Chinese markets. Next. Now this is what I call migration of 3G, but also World War 3G, essentially where you have, now on the world stage, you have 3 different types of wireless 3G protocols out there in the market, and as the end user going, well, which one is the best? Which one do I use? I don't know. Well, basically, this is a very political thing. It's a very nationalistic thing. The Chinese want to flex their technological muscle, and they're doing that by promoting something called TD-SCDMA. GSM was basically, what does GSM mean? Does anybody know here? What is GSM? Anybody? We call that Global System for Mobile Communications, which was metamorphosized for Group System Mobile, a French term, which I don't speak French, so. Anyway, the GSM Global System for Mobile Communications. Basically, the migration for 3G for GSM is what we call WCDMA. Now, CDMA, does anybody know who has commercialized CDMA the best in America? They're in San Diego. The name starts with a Q. There you go. Qualcomm basically took CDMA technology from, the story of CDMA is very interesting. It actually started by a movie star and scientists that worked together from Germany, and then they took the technology to the United States in the 40s, and they had a real tough time getting it patented. Finally, Qualcomm took the technology, commercialized it, tweaked it a bit, started to promote it onto the world markets by 1997. Both Verizon and, well, actually, AirTouch at that time, and Sprint had started to implement and use this technology. So CDMA, the migration for 3G is what we call 1X EVDV. That stands for Enhanced Digital Voice and Enhanced Evolution of Video and Data, basically. Now, TD-SCDMA is the homegrown solution by China, and Datom has been the developer of this technology, but quite honestly, it's been in cooperation with Siemens. Siemens has invested more into China's mobile device markets than they are investing into Germany for the wireless mobile device technology. I look at the integration where most Western companies that operate in China will have to merge with local Chinese companies, and I can see that integration going on right now. Next. Now, this is the Chinese New Year of 3G, basically having licenses. And these licenses, basically everyone around the world who makes mobile devices, mobile equipment, wireless equipment, has been anxiously waiting for this technology. And the reason is because China is the biggest part of the pie for wireless communications. We're talking multi-billion dollars of revenue that we generated when China ramps up to 3G. 370 million subscribers, 20% penetration saturation rate. So that's really quite low, that many subscribers. India is the only other country with only about 3% saturation and about 35 million subscribers in India right now. It's huge growth opportunities. So these are important. Now the word is that the word keeps changing. Originally it was going to be 4 licenses for 3G. So who would get them? China China Mobile would get them. China Mobile is the largest wireless cell phone company in China. China Unicom is the second largest. That's the company that has both GSM and CDMA technologies, those wireless technologies. And then finally, you have China Mobile and China Telecom and China Netcom. These are the new carriers. And they have something called Xiaolingtong. Little Smart, they call it. It's fixed wireless. It's basically having a very low-cost cell phone that has what we call calling party pay, CPP. So it doesn't cost somebody to call you. It doesn't cost you when somebody calls you. Only when you make an outgoing call does it cost. You can't roam to different countries. You can't even roam to different provinces. It's very, very low cost, but it does work. And you know what? Mr. Wong, who sells vegetables on the streets of Shanghai, he may not need anything better than basically a cell phone that he can roam from his office or his stall to his home, and vice versa. So basically, that's the situation. We do not know who will get the licenses. There may be 3 now. Now they're talking that they're only going to deliver 3 licenses to the market. So who's going to get the licenses? Probably China Mobile, probably China Unicom, and the third one? Anyone's guess. Next. So As I mentioned to you, China's flexing its technological muscle right now on the world stage, in the world market. And they will be able to influence many, many different types of technologies. The reason is, it's very simple. They're manufacturing, and they're designing, and they're on all of these major worldwide organizations. The IEEE, they are permanent members, and they are contributing members for technology now. So expect these kinds of technology situations where in April of this year, there's something called the WAPI encryption protocol. And China basically said to Intel, you know what, if you want to sell in our country, your chipsets, you have to let us know what the technology is. And basically you have to work with our 16 different access point manufacturers. Otherwise, you know what, you can't import into our country anymore. Basically, Intel had to work with the United States government in order to get to explain to China that this is illegal, because what they were doing is taking a VAT tax and giving it back to the local manufacturers of chips and not giving it back to the foreign manufacturers. So you can see there's a bit of nationalism involved with this. And there's something called EVP, which is the evolution for DVD in the future, and China has its own standards. As well as I mentioned, the third generation mobile communications. So as you can see, expect China to influence the world standard for wireless communications down the road. Actually, right now. Next. Now, these are some of the new powerful 3G cell phones. If you notice, they're communicating with their video phone, right? You're talking to somebody else. You notice the wire still there? Hutchinson, basically, last year was a pioneer bringing out video phones into the global market. Hutchinson is a huge organization. They have a small office in Bellevue, Washington State. Basically, they are proliferating with 3G technology, but the problem is the phones weren't very good. One of the only shipping phones last year was the Motorola phone. And so you can see the Motorola phone on the right. ASU had a phone or two. ASU is the largest Japanese handset manufacturer. But video is in your future. It's in your future. And again, the Chinese, and the Taiwanese, and South Koreans, they will be designing and producing these future mobile video phones. Next. So this is very quickly. In 2003, the foreign handset manufacturers were going down, and the Chinese handset manufacturers were coming up. That is still the situation, but the Western handset manufacturers have realized they have to go up the food chain. They can't survive because the low cost of production to produce these 2G, sometimes 2.5G cell phones. So they moved up the food chain. Nokia, Motorola, Samsung, LG. Those are the top 3 or 4 companies in manufacturing in China that are all foreign. Then it's a bunch of Taiwanese and mainland Chinese handset manufacturers. Next. So this is from the Ministry of Information Industry. This is the year 2004 statistics for the GSM side, business, and CDMA side. Actually, the future is CDMA. Why? Well, Qualcomm's version of 3G is CDMA. The migration from GSM is CDMA, and even China's homegrown version is CDMA. So CDMA handsets are actually very important to watch in the market. As you can see, Motorola has about 40.8%, and Samsung has a large percent. Nokia is nowhere to be found because they maybe stubbornness in coming up with the flip phone, and stubbornness with operating with the carriers in America. They are playing catch up in the CDMA world. And on the GSM side, Nokia is the largest cell phone company in China, followed by Motorola. Next. So this is just the market share. This is a little dated, but you can see the CDMA portion is still very small. I believe CDMA technology is better. Next. So it's a crowded handset market. There are 31 GSM/GPRS handset manufacturers in the market today. Some of the major players, these are Chinese handset manufacturers. Ningbo, Bird, Haier, TCL, Legend, Good. Next. And this just lists some of the local CDMA handset manufacturers. So a lot of the handset companies in China want to ramp up and understand CDMA technology. So about a year and a half ago, they started to form joint ventures with foreign companies, a lot of Korean companies, and Japanese companies in order to develop CDMA technology for their market. Next. Look at that. There are 37 handset manufacturers in China. And basically, they're not all going to survive. I see consolidation amongst the Chinese companies and the Western companies. Alcatel has technically jumped out of manufacturing cell phones, and they're basically doing the ODM and OEM route, which will be the future for Western manufacturers, Japanese manufacturers, and the Koreans are already outsourcing much of the production to the, what we call the contract manufacturers. Selectron, Flextronics, Celestica, these are actually contract manufacturers owned by Western companies that operate in China. Next. Now, this is what I call the evolution of the mobile device. Okay, so a Western handset manufacturer, or Chinese or a Japanese handset manufacturer, or European handset manufacturer, I want to take a medium, low-end handset, I want to have it produced. I have a specific market I want to go into. Well, basically, by cooperating with the Chinese, and these companies in the middle are ODM and OEM, sometimes OBM, which means original brand manufacturers. O manufacturers, ODM, original design manufacturers, and OEM, original equipment manufacturers. It's basically outsourcing the production of a cell phone for a famous brand in Western company. We're outsourcing a lot these days. So basically, right now in the market, China does much of the handset manufacturing. In fact, many of these Chinese factories, they can't compete in Taiwan. They're closing factories and shipping they're outsourcing all the manufacturing into China. That's what's going on. It's not just a local scale here in America. It's going on quite a bit in Asia as well. So the handset manufacturers will basically now do a lot of branding. Branding is very, very critical. Little Hello Kitty cell phones with nice little knickknacks hanging off of them. This is what the Asian countries go for. They like to hang flip phones around their neck. That's what they're looking for. And basically, they're now looking for famous, Yao Ming does commercials for cell phones. And some soccer players in China, pop singers in Taiwan and Hong Kong. It's very, very popular. Next. The last slide here on technology. We're getting out of the technology side. Okay, the last one is what we call Xiaolitong. Now this is basically an interesting technology that AT&T Wireless tried to implement domestically in the United States, in Washington State, called fixed wireless. And basically with fixed wireless, it uses a wireless local loop system similar to basically in America, if you have a wireless cell phone and you're not going to roam very far, you have very limited coverage. But it's low cost, and you may only use it in a very localized, if you live in a small little village, perfect application of this kind of technology. So there are 54 million subscribers, and this allowed China Netcom and China Telecom essentially to get into the wireless game. Because these two carriers were not wireless carriers. They do not have wireless licenses. Only China Unicom and China Telecom have wireless licenses. So this technology, again, is calling party days. UT Starcom is the major developer in China for this technology. But actually, the technology was somewhat developed by the Japanese. They've been using it for almost a decade now. They say that they have a migration to 3G. This is UT Starcom. By the way, that's probably a good company for you guys to talk to. Next. Now, some are doing business with the Chinese. I'll go through a few parts here. This may be interesting. In fact, I imagine most of you will somehow, in some way, if you do international business, will interface with the Chinese. They make so many different products in all the world. You will be interfacing with the Chinese in direct communication, fax, phone. Next. So, modern influences on China today. Now, these are some of the things that are influencing China. We are influencing China. We're buying their products. We are contributing to their wealth generation. We're contributing to their growth. But the Americans influence China. As I said, the smartphone, the mobile devices, they are influencing China. There are a lot of things influencing China. And that's actually very, very good. The more we pry open the Middle Kingdom, the better off the whole world is. China has a lot of secrets yet to unfold. Next. Now, this is what I call the Chinese circle of influence. Basically, when a Chinese person wants to ask questions, they don't typically go out and directly interface with you in many instances. They may ask you basically in a roundabout way. If I want to know how old you are, I'm not going to ask you how old you are. I say, gee, when did you graduate from school? When do you have any kids? Using that method, which is a kind of a roundabout way to get things, because in the Chinese culture, they base everything on the continuity. Everything's based on continuity and harmony as well. And basically, with this method, they don't go direct to the target, but they eventually reach the target. And If you're a stranger, you have to do what? Penetrate that veneer. If you're a friend, you've already entered and you've started to penetrate. But the goal is to become part of the family or family-like. That means a very strong relationship. Now, I am in a Chinese family, and let me tell you, it's some of the most strange and complex norms and rules of the world. Next. Now, Confucianism and how it applies to business in China today. Guanxi face. Guanxi. Does anybody know what Guanxi means? What does Guanxi mean? Anybody ever hear this term? Anybody? Well, Guan in Chinese means close, and Shitong means system. So, what do we have? We have a closed system. So how do we open the door to that closed system? We do it with developing relationships. That's how most Asian cultures, businesses develop through long-term relationships. You can't buy Guanxi in 7-Eleven. No, I haven't found it there yet. You basically have to develop it. It's based on social responsibility and social interface with your counterpart, and it involves cross-cultural communications and cross-cultural understanding, which involves patience. So the bottom line here is, I believe there's a difference between the Western mind and the Asian mind in terms of how tasks and duties and relationships get developed. In the Chinese world, basically, a relationship starts. You know, if you don't like that person, you're not going to do business with that person. Pretty common sense, right? But if you like that person, you can develop a relationship, then you have to come to an understanding that you understand each other, which means involving a little bit of trust. And then eventually, one person may ask for a task, the other person needs to reciprocate. It's almost reminiscent of a quid pro quo, but it is basically kind of like currency. It's almost like currency. You help each other out in this form of currency, which is called Guanxi in China. Now, the Western mind basically, I need to buy this product. So you may want to interface with somebody without understanding who they are. Then you may come to an understanding, oh, he's a cool dude, and I like him. Then eventually you may develop a relationship. So you see the difference? Next. And it is true that in China, because of Confucianism, the nail that sticks up too high gets pounded down flat, basically. It's part of the Chinese hierarchical system. The Chinese do not, they're a fairly modest culture, and they do not like people to stick out too much. I'll talk about that later. But, means, face. Basically, you have to preserve the face of your Chinese guest. If you make a Chinese person a client whose face, you will not do business with that person. You absolutely will not do business with that person. He simply will not do business with you. Because preserving the face is very, very critical. Now, if you're from an Asian family, you will understand that. Hierarchical system between parent and child. It's very, very important. And basically, high-level manager to simple line worker. It's very, very critical, that relationship. Now, the Chinese will do business with you if you give them a face, but they definitely will not do business with you. And if you don't give them a face, so 不可以丢脸, as we say in Chinese. Next. So Guanxi, we talked a little bit about that, a closed system. So Guanxi equals currency. Next. Understanding China's legal environment for contract usage. You know, basically, when you do business with the Chinese, you know, you're in Beijing and you're ready to sign a contract, and you think, my goodness, this is taking a long time. Weeks, days, weeks, months, possibly years. Then you sign the contract, and you think, you know what, all my problems are solved. Oh, it's been a long, hard struggle.